Okay, so, like, imagine this for a sec. You're a kid again, right?
Mhm.
And you're rummaging through a toy chest. What do you see?
Probably some plastic clubs, maybe a dinosaur or two.
Yeah. And you know what else? A whole bunch of cavemen,
Yeah.
all set to, like, conquer the prehistoric world.
Oh, absolutely. And those cavemen are always super buff, ready to hunt, with a woman, and like a tattered animal skin just trailing behind.
It's crazy how that image is just stuck in our heads, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
it's some kind of, like, universal truth about early humans. But what if, and stay with me here, what if everything we think we know about prehistoric life is, like, totally wrong?
Okay, now you've got me intrigued.
Well, get this. That's exactly what we're diving into today, and trust me, it's a wild ride.
Yeah.
We're looking at excerpts from Cyborgs versus the Earth Goddess. It's by Seenarine,
Interesting title.
right? So this book, it basically flips the script on that whole man the hunter story we're all familiar with.
Mm.
It argues that for, like, centuries, human society wasn't male-dominated at all.
Really? So what? It was the women who wore the pants, so to speak.
Well, the book uses this term, eco-gynocentric, which is a mouthful, I know, but it's more nuanced than just saying women were in charge.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does eco-gynocentric even mean?
So imagine a society where nature is revered, right? Like the earth is seen as this life-giving force, almost like a goddess. And women, they're the ones leading the way, deeply connected to this feminine energy.
I see. So it's about more than just gender roles. It's about a whole different way of relating to the world, to nature itself.
Exactly. And that eco part, that's key. It challenges our whole modern day mindset, the whole conquering nature thing. What if early humans actually saw themselves as part of this delicate web, completely dependent on the Earth's, like, generosity?
It's a completely different perspective, that's for sure. But how do we know any of this was actually real? It's easy to talk about these utopian societies, but where's the proof?
You're asking the right questions. Well, for starters, the book talks about these fascinating archaeological discoveries. You're familiar with those Venus figurines? They're those little sculptures of, well, let's just say, curvy women.
Oh, yeah, I remember learning about those in art history. They're kind of everywhere, aren't they?
Exactly. Turns out they weren't just some quirky art style. Archaeologists have found, like, tons of them across Europe and Asia, and some are crazy old, like 30,000 years old.
Wow, 30,000 years, that's going way back.
And get this, these figurines weren't hidden away or anything. They were out in the open, suggesting they held a place of honor in these societies.
So they weren't just random doodles, they meant something.
Right. And another thing, they way outnumber any male figures from the same period. Like, we're talking a difference of hundreds, even thousands. That says something about what these early humans valued, right?
It's like we're only seeing one side of the story in those history books.
And it gets even better. The book also talks about cave paintings. We usually associate those with men, right? But get this, recent analysis of the handprints near those paintings has revealed something really cool.
Don't tell me, it was mostly women leaving their mark on those cave walls.
You got it.
Wow, so it wasn't just the men creating art and telling stories back then.
Exactly. These women, they were shaping their world, expressing themselves, leaving their mark for us to find, thousands of years later. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. So we've got these Venus figurines, the handprints in the caves. It really makes you think twice about those old school caveman cartoons, huh?
Totally. It's like our whole understanding of prehistory needs a reboot or something. But, and this is where it gets even more wild, if this eco-gynocentric thing was so common back then, so successful, I mean, what happened? How did we get from that to like, well, this...
Right, because it's not like history just woke up one day and was like, all right, everyone, from now on, it's a man's world. Something must have happened to, like, mess up that whole eco-gynocentric thing.
Right. $1 million question right there. And the book, it points to this really important turning point in human history, domestication. But, and here's the kicker, not just like domesticating animals, though that's part of it.
Okay, so what else is there?
The author, they connect domesticating animals with,
Oh.
wait for it, domesticating women.
Whoa. Okay, now that connection I never would have made. It seems kind of backwards, Wouldn't domesticating animals involve working together, sharing responsibility, which sounds pretty eco-gynocentric to me?
You're right on the money there. It shows how complex this theory really is. The book says that, yeah, early humans, both men and women, they were all involved in domesticating animals. But as new ways of life popped up, it was controlling those animals. And what they provided, that became a big deal.
So how did this whole power shift actually go down? Was it a slow change, or did something major happen to just flip everything upside down?
So the book talks about this theory called the Kurgan hypothesis. Might ring a bell if you've, looked into ancient history at all. Basically, it describes this massive invasion of warriors on horseback. They came from the steppes like 5,500 years ago, sweeping across Europe and Asia. These Kurgan people, they were a whole different ballgame.
So not exactly a friendly drop-in then. Sounds like these Kurgan folks were there to shake things up a bit.
Oh yeah, definitely not there to make friends. And if this theory's right, they weren't just happy with taking over the land. They brought their whole belief system along for the ride, and it was super patriarchal, really hierarchical, totally opposite of the egalitarian societies they ran into.
So kind of like a clash of civilizations, two different worlds colliding. No wonder things got messy.
And that's exactly what the book suggests happened. The Kurgan invasions, they led to massive changes and, yeah, a lot of violence. Imagine entire communities uprooted, their way of life tossed out, their beliefs, like, demonized. It wasn't just about land anymore. It was about whose story got told, whose gods everyone worshipped.
And whose version of history got, cast down to us. It makes you wonder, if this whole eco-gynocentric thing holds up, why haven't we heard more about it? Why isn't it, like, common knowledge?
Excellent point. And the book tackles that head on. Turns out, the scholar who really brought this theory to light, Maria Gimbutas, she got a lot of flack from, well, the academic world, even some feminists, actually. They said she was being essentialist, like saying women's power comes only from biology, and that she was romanticizing the past.
Wow, so even when you try to challenge how we see gender roles, it's like you're walking on eggshells.
Totally. It just shows how complicated these discussions can get. But it's also important to remember that challenging those deeply held beliefs, the ones that have propped up power structures for ages, that's never easy. Someone's always going to get their feathers ruffled.
So where does that leave us? You're probably thinking, okay, fascinating history lesson, but what does this have to do with me now in the 21st century? Fair question.
Totally fair. And when you look at the world today, the climate crisis, the gap between the haves and have-nots, all the conflict, it can feel kind of overwhelming, right?
For sure. It's easy to feel like we're stuck on this one track heading towards who knows what, like we've lost something important along the way.
Exactly. And that's what I find so powerful about this book. It's not just about the past. It's like a wake-up call. It reminds us that there are other ways to exist in the world, other ways to connect with each other, with the planet. It makes us ask, what if those eco-gynocentric values, cooperation, balance, respecting life, what if those aren't just things of the past, but like guideposts to a better future?
It's like we've bought into this whole idea of like human nature being competitive, even brutal. I mean, think about it. It's in those old caveman cartoons, news headlines, even how we talk about getting ahead in life.
It's so deeply rooted in us that we don't even question it anymore. It's just like the way it is, the way it's always been. But this book, Cyborgs versus the Earth Goddess, it really shakes things up, don't you think?
Totally. It makes you wonder if this survival of the fittest thing, maybe it's not some like unchangeable law, but just a story we tell ourselves.
And like any good story, it serves a purpose, right? It justifies how power works, how resources are divided. But then you have to ask, what happens when that story doesn't work for us anymore? When it's more like a cage than anything else?
And that's what's so thought-provoking about the book. It's not about recreating some perfect prehistoric world. It's more about realizing there are other ways to be in the world, other ways to connect with each other and the planet.
It begs the question, what if those eco-gynocentric values, things like cooperation, balance, reverence for life, what if they're not relics of the past, but like a blueprint for a better future?
Honestly, that's what really resonated with me during this whole deep dive. It's not about pointing fingers or romanticizing the past. It's about realizing we have choices, we have agency.
100%. For a book with a title like Cyborgs versus the Earth Goddess, which, let's be honest, sounds kind of intense, it actually ends on a surprisingly hopeful note.
Really? How so? I've got to admit, the cyborg part always makes me think of, like, scary robots taking over.
Right. Total sci-fi vibes. But the author uses cyborg as more of a metaphor. It represents this very masculine technological force that's all about control, even if it hurts the environment or people seen as weaker. But here's the thing. The book argues that this doesn't have to be the end of the story. It suggests those ancient eco-gynocentric societies, with their strong connection to nature and emphasis on working together, they might hold clues to facing the challenges ahead.
So it's not women against men or even humans against technology. It's about finding a way for those things to coexist in a way that's, beneficial, not destructive.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. It's not about going back in time. It's about using the wisdom of the past to build a better future one that's sustainable and just.
You know, going through all this incredible info today, I kept thinking about our listeners. Like, what kind of questions are they asking? What connections are they making? And one quote keeps popping up for me. If those eco-gynocentric societies thrived for so long, what can we learn from their ability to bounce back from tough times? Because the stuff we're dealing with today, climate change, inequality, all the division, we need some serious resilience to handle it.
That is such a good point. And the book touches on that, this idea that those prehistoric societies, they didn't have it easy. They had hardships, conflicts, uncertainty, but they also had this incredible ability to adapt, to be resourceful, to come together as a community. And that helped them not just survive, but truly flourish for centuries. That, to me, is incredibly hopeful.
It reminds us that humans are capable of amazing things when we cooperate, when we put the well-being of everyone first. And maybe by reconnecting with those ancient values of cooperation, balance, and respecting the earth, we can write a new chapter in human history. One that's less about cyborgs versus the earth goddess and more about finding that sweet spot between masculine and feminine, technology and nature, past and future.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
It really would. And on that note, we'll leave you to sit with these ideas, explore this alternative view of our past, and consider what it all means for the future. If you found this deep dive as fascinating as we did, definitely check out Cyborgs versus the Earth Goddess by seenarine. There's so much more to unpack, so many thought-provoking ideas in there. But for now, remember, what if the key to a brighter future isn't repeating the past, but rediscovering the wisdom of those who came before us? Until next time, keep those big questions coming, keep questioning everything, and keep diving deep.